this morning from Anteris is Wayne Paterson. Wayne, good to see you.
Good to see you, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
Look, this is big news here, Wayne. The 30-day follow-up data from your first human patients has been released. You've got to be pleased with these numbers. Did they meet expectations?
Yeah, Andrew, I think probably pleased is an understatement. We're ecstatic. We expected good, we got better. Certainly met expectations. I mean, we've seen this valve on the bench and in animals, and of course, we've done some human studies in the surgical setting. So we have a feel for how this valve works and why it's different to what's available. But we clearly have come out with something that is significantly different and superior to what's available at the moment. And a couple of quick reasons on that. I mean, our valve has been designed quite differently to the valves that are currently available. The problem we solve is also a little bit different than ones that are currently available, the first generation, so to speak. We're really brought out to solve the problem of cracking a patient's chest open in this particular disease, because that's the only way to replace that valve. There's no medicine, there's no pharmacotherapy available. Because those patients were older and quite sick, you couldn't crack their chests. So they really did a good job of solving that problem, but that's not today's problem. Today's problem is the patients have gotten younger in the last 2 years only, from 85 to 73. They're more active, they're living longer, they need a valve that works better and lasts longer. And in fact, you can crack the chest of those patients. They may not like it, but you can do it. So you're solving a completely different problem. We've come at it from that direction. And I think the clinical results certainly speak for themselves, but we've got a real winner here.
You've clearly got an impressive advisory board of doctors here. What was their response?
Right. So, I mean, yeah, they are impressive. I mean, the advisory board was recruited about 3 years ago based on their credentials. Obviously, people who are at the top of the tree from a podium point of view, publication, of course, as clinicians, and representing some of the biggest centers up here in the States. And a quick word on that. The mere presence of those gentlemen on the advisory board validates our science. They don't get behind you and burn up a 40-year, 20, 30-year reputation that they've built for themselves or their centers, unless you are legitimate and viable. Of course we are. The three of them, of course, were the attending physicians during this particular part of the study. But I hear the word amazing. I was on with one of them today. Amazing, game changer, wonderful. Every superlative you can think of gets thrown around. But it's because the results are just something incredible. I mean, they've seen it all, right, as clinicians. And a lot of my physicians we work with have worked on the earlier stage of the competitor product. So they've seen it all. And this is truly, truly surprised to the upside, both for the clinicians and, of course, the impact that will have for patients down the track.
What about doctors outside of the advisory board, Wayne? Have they had a peek at the data?
Yeah, so that's a good point, Andrew. I mean, we obviously have a very high-level, top-notch group of advisors that we meet very regularly with now. But of course, in the universe, there are other physicians that are not on our advisory board, but of course, we still talk to. The top group of clinicians in this space. Many of them now, not just the clinicians, but the people who do the echoes, the CTs, all the other ancillary folks that work around these patients. We are, as we speak, talking to some of these folks, and of course they are friends, colleagues, and peers to the doctors on our advisory board. So of course they're talking to them. I was talking to a doctor in the last week who was in the number 1, 2, 3 globally, and the same reaction when he saw that he was with our CMO, Dr. Maduri, talking through the data, showing him the echoes and the scans of these patients. Blown away. The response is just universally extremely positive because the data is so good.
And so importantly, what do these results mean, Wayne, for your shareholders, for the investors?
I look, always difficult to answer that question, what the stock market is going to do. What it means for our shareholders, we've got a $5 billion product here.
So what's coming up as far as news, Wayne?
So, I mean, it's a great, 2022 is going to be a great year for news flow. We've obviously got this patient group that we've just released that data for. There'll be further follow-ups and recruitment into that study. We've discovered things along the way here with this valve that we haven't yet put out there. We're going to analyze a bit more deeply, but more beneficial aspects of this valve from a clinical point of view that we're just trying to articulate at the moment. So there's a lot of upside there. And of course, we'll start our US FDA studies and get those moving as well.
Do you reckon, Wayne, there's further upside to be had in the stock, given the recent strength in the last couple of months?
Yeah, fortunately, the stock has moved, and we were definitely trading under fair value, and we still are by a long shot. It would not be prudent of me to comment on the share price per se, but I can talk a little bit about the valuation of other companies. So, one of the biggest competitors in this space has a market cap of 66 billion US dollars. 80% of their business is made up of their TAVR device, and we've just beaten that device clinically. So if you consider what I said earlier, the space is $10 billion. We could certainly take 50% of that down the track. That's 5 billion US dollars. Give that a multiple of 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it turns out to be. It's a very large number. Now, of course, that's dependent on time and resources. But there is certainly a lot of wiggle room on the valuation, given that this is not a Me Too product. This is not just a little bit better in this space. This is clinically significant, and it is a lot better, and it meets the current needs of that younger patient group, as I mentioned earlier. We're solving a problem that hasn't necessarily been solved, a different problem to what these original products were set out to do.
Always good to catch up. Wayne, thanks very much.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Andrew.